The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has pledged to strengthen economic and democratic ties with the United States. This after meeting with the US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday. On his US trip, Sunak is set to meet President Biden and members of the US Congress along with a number of American business leaders. Sunak has also conveyed that Britain will host a global summit on artificial intelligence safety later this year. Sunak expressed that a new alliance would help London and Washington to navigate a global economy where new powers are manipulating global markets. During his visit, Sunak also visited a high school in Washington and met with students where he looked at technology and sustainability projects. Five children have been injured in a knife attack that took place in Annecy, France. Three of them are in critical condition. A man armed with a knife attacked a group of children aged around 3 years old. The man has been detained by the police and is believed to be a Syrian asylum seeker. The French Prime Minister, Elizabeth Borne, will travel to the town of Annecy. European Union interior ministers are holding a meeting in Luxembourg to discuss the challenge of migrants entering Europe without authorization. They are trying to come up with a fresh set of measures to deal with the crisis that started in 2010. Europe's asylum system collapsed after hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers from Syria and North Africa took boats for Greece and Italy, sparking one of EU's biggest political crises. China's foreign ministry issued a statement saying that the joint patrols with Russia were not targeted at certain countries. The statement comes after tensions in Japan rose. With the joint drills, China completed a second phase of the joint air patrols with Russia over the Western Pacific. The spokesperson from the ministry also said that the air patrols were in accordance with international law. Russia and China conducted a joint air patrol in the Asia-Pacific region on Wednesday, and according to the Russian Defense Ministry, a group of Russian Tu-95 strategic missile carriers and Chinese Kun-6K strategic bombers flew over the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea as well as the western part of the Pacific Ocean. The joint air patrol was held as part of the implementation of the military cooperation plan for 2023. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is visiting the flood-hit southern region of Kherson. Evacuations continue after the destruction of a major Russian-held dam on the front line. Zelensky discussed the evacuation procedures and life support measures for the affected areas. North Dakota Governor Joe Bergman has entered the 2024 Republican presidential campaign, adding his name to an already crowded race that includes the former President Donald Trump. Bergman, who previously worked as a software company executive, sold his startup to Microsoft more than 2 decades ago. The 66-year-old Republican governor is largely unknown beyond his state. However, he hopes to dent the early leads of his party colleagues like Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, Mike Pence, and Trump. Iran has officially reopened its Consulate General and Representative Office in the Saudi city of Jeddah. This comes 7 years after the two cut diplomatic ties. The Iranian delegation held a reopening ceremony in the Consulate General building. The diplomats of both the nations cut ribbons together to mark the occasion. An orphanage in Sudan has been evacuated after witnessing the death of more than 70 infants, toddlers and older children. The cause of the death is being reported as lack of food and illness over the past couple of months. Malaysia and Indonesia on Thursday ended some long-standing maritime border disputes. The Indonesian President Joko Widodo, during his visit to Malaysia, signed two landmark treaties along with the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. The treaties are on the delimitation of the two nations' territorial seas in parts of the Straits of Malacca and the Sulawesi Sea. The two leaders said that they are committed to solve other land boundary issues by June 2024. And Indonesia's President Joko Widodo called for better collaboration with neighbouring Malaysia to fight against the discrimination that their country's palm oil products have faced. Widodo's comments come after the European Union passed a law this year banning imports of commodities linked to deforestation, a move which will hurt the exports of palm oil. Indonesia and Malaysia both are the world's top two producers and exporters of palm oil. Brazil's Supreme Court has again postponed a ruling on legalizing boundaries of vast land reserves set aside for indigenous people. Brazil's President Lula da Silva earlier had formally promised to recognize millions of acres of rainforest as indigenous land protected under federal law, but the legalization to pass the law is still due. In the latest discovery, a human skeleton was found buried in a military facility near Uruguay's capital. The city is less than 10 meters from where the remains of the victims of the South American country's dictatorship have been found in recent years. The Australian Parliament will pass a law next week banning public displays and sales of Nazi hate symbols. A swastika, one of the most recognizable symbols of Nazi propaganda, will be outlawed. The move comes after the Australian spy agency warned about the rise of far-right groups in the country and that they are becoming more active by the day. Indonesian authorities have announced that an Australian man will be deported after being freed from jail, and Rispi Jones was accused of assaulting several people while drunk. The 23-year-old told the press that he was relieved and happy to be released. A Palestinian cafe owner in Gaza is using coffee ground as fertilizers for plants he is growing. Abdullah Al-Safadi collects used coffee grounds and dries it before using them as fertilizers. He later distributes these to some farmers. This is his bid to make more ecological and environmental friendly community. Obese and diabetic patients in the UK will be given free access to a new diet drug. Studies show the drug reduces weight by up to 15%. UK patients fitting the criteria of being diabetic and obese will be prescribed the injection for a period of 2 years. It's expected that around 35,000 people would have access to the drug. And according to the UK government, it's part of the £40 million pilot project that explores how to deliver weight loss treatments outside the hospital setting. A Taiwanese high school has installed an indoor shooting range on its campus to train students in the use of rifles and other weapons. The facility helps students learn about all-out defense, a concept designed to help the country prepare for conflict. Aside from shooting airsoft guns, students can also experience flying military aircraft using a flight simulator. Hundreds of volunteers and government workers picked up trash on the coastlines of the Manila Bay to mark the World Oceans Day. Close to 200 sacks of garbage were filled up in 2 hours along the capital city's Pasig River. Poor law enforcement on proper waste disposal is among the top reasons for the pollution trouble in the Philippines. The Kilauea volcano in Hawaii, one of the most active volcanoes in the world, started erupting after a 3-month pause. The Hawaiian Emergency Management Agency confirmed that the eruption started at 5 a.m. on Wednesday. The last time the Kilauea volcano erupted was earlier this year on January 5th. Locals have been urged to stay indoors and wear face masks to avoid high levels of toxic volcano gas. Puerto Rico is enduring a scorching heat wave with temperatures hitting 52 degrees Celsius earlier this week. The severe weather conditions are making Puerto Rican residents more vulnerable to heat exhaustion and heat strokes. To tackle the sweltering weather, locals were seen buying fans and inflatable pools. Scientists have claimed that climate change is contributing to the more severe and longer heat waves across the planet. Hundreds of uncontrolled forest fires blaze across Canada, threatening infrastructure, forcing evacuations and sending blankets of smoky air across the border into New York City. Roaring flames have rapidly escalated in eastern Canada and forced evacuations in Nova Scotia and Quebec. And according to local authorities, more than 11,000 people have been evacuated so far from remote parts of northern Quebec. Meanwhile, the weather forecast says air quality will be worsening this week in cities including Ottawa and Toronto due to the smoke. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has asked residents to stay indoors as the city air quality continued to worsen due to the smoke from the Canadian wildfires. During a press conference, Adams said that effects of the hundreds of wildfires burning across Quebec all the way to the western provinces could be felt on Wednesday. The effects could be felt as far as North Carolina to the south and Ohio in the west. It resulted in skylines being blotted out and people feeling irritation in their throats. U.S. authorities issued air quality alerts in multiple regions and poor conditions are expected to persist for days.